I'm ready.
All right, we are live. Welcome back to another episode of Comics de la Muerte, episode 35, The Art of Monster Making. You have me, Ronnie Gunter, Crimson Owl Comics, my co-host, Frogbreaker Studios, Jason Alexander, and Gary Hodges, our returning guests, as always, here to help us talk about the fun topic. Because with every horror story, there's always the monster, and the monster is the star of the show.
We're like the worst Brady Bunch ever.
I know. I had to. It's always tricky. Like, which side am I? Okay, yeah.
And of always, before we start getting in, go to minicomicsbundle.com to get all the mini comics.
You already know. Hold up, Ronnie. Hold up.
Yep.
Let me take it from here for a second. Bundle 6 just launched, guys. This is 6 months of minis. There's a lot of comic books, guys. That's like $30 worth of comic books too. That's not a bad deal.
Instead of buying a cheeseburger from McDonald's that tastes like crap, get that.
Exactly.
Yeah. It won't taste better, but you'll enjoy reading it more than you would a cheeseburger.
Yeah, do not eat.
Exactly. $60 for the year. You get access to web comics. You get access to flash fiction. $3, 3 issues a month for $5 a month. If you just want to do it individual for a little bit longer, that might shift now that we're over the halfway point. I'm not 100%, but minicomicbundles.com. Check them out. Find me. Ask me about them. I'm happy to talk about them. Ronnie, what do you got? Ronnie's got monsters every month, y'all.
Exactly. Go to my Ko-fi account in the description, and you could keep up with my 12 days of holiday horror calendar. And I did a serial killer that dressed up like an Easter bunny, and he cut out the woman's eyes.
Ronnie don't put enough bass in his voice about his 12 months. His 12 months of horror, man. It's really fun. He's got a horror comic coming out. He's about to think about transitioning it to webtoons so it can start existing. We got Mr. Look, I'm still doing it the wrong way. We got Mr. Dinosaurs versus Mars Bots, y'all. One of my favorite comics of 2020.
For sure.
I got 2 huge comics for $18. I read them all the time, but I don't know where they are. But
I got them. Wait a minute.
Y'all, the artwork from cover to interiors.
This one actually is sold out right now, but there'll be a reprint this year.
That's awesome.
Now, this is the same comic, 1975. This is the limited pulp edition, like the kind of retro kind of pulp cover edition.
Yeah, I love that.
Also is going to sell out, and when it sells out, it's gone forever. Not faking you. I'm not lying. I'm never going to reprint it. You're never going to see another version of this, or with like a color swap. She's got a blue towel now. I'm not going to do that to you if you're a collector and you have this. Yes, and then 97. This is about to sell out. I think there's like 3 or 4 copies left in the store. When this sells out, there's going to be just like 75. There's going to be a pulp edition, a limited pulp edition.
Nice.
But you're not going to see that until this one sells out. So 3 or 4 copies left of this. You might want to move on it.
You guys, the interiors of this book are the truth. It's the truth, y'all. Like, this is everything that I enjoy reading about comic books. So Dinosaurs versus Mars Bots on Etsy. Read it. Love it. Ronnie, did we miss anything?
Nope.
We good?
Not at all.
All right. So what are we talking about here today, y'all?
The art of monster making. So, we all here have created monsters. And like I said, horror movies, people go there for the monster. Oh, Gary got lost. But
the monster got him.
Right?
But no, like monsters.
You know what? I got my plug and I was done. That was it.
Yeah. He was like, that was it. I don't want to talk about monsters. I want to talk about
other things to do, guys.
But
I got my ad spot.
Right?
Later. No, I'm sorry about that. My connection's a little ditchy. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So who wants to kick it off? You want to kick it off, Jason? How do you actually approach, since you're mostly a writer, how do you approach writing a monster?
Monsters are fun, like especially with me, like just now getting into horror. Monsters are fun because you always know that you want something to scare. And I think I've actually like messaged both of y'all at some point and was like, okay, here's a monster I want to do. What does this look like to you guys? You know, because they don't. I usually like think about little things that I find creepy, like baby doll eyes. I don't know why, but like that's always like a go-to for me. It's like, imagine something like big and huge and hulking with these wet glass baby doll eyes. Like that always just kind of takes it over the edge for me.
Especially the ones that follow you.
Yeah, or wet skin. Like something dry with wet skin is like super disgusting to me. So it's like visually, monsters for me are always people. Like Patrick Bateman is my kind of monster. You know, Kevin Spacey on Seven. Those are my kind of monsters. So if I'm trying to visualize a monster, I usually go way over the limit, and then I like start to pull things back as I finalize what it's going to look like. But that's me.
Gotcha. What about you, Gary?
Oh boy. You know, so I tend to, there's something that has stuck from me since school. I in a past life was an anthropology major. I was really interested in all that. So and like folklore and fairy tale, comparative myth, all that kind of stuff, which is a really good area for monsters and you know, scary ideas. And the way I had it broken down to me once by a teacher, and I don't know why this stuck with me, but it did, was that there's basically two categories of monster. There's the one that scares you in a very caveman way. So like the kind that's going to eat you, the kind that's watching you in the dark, the kind that's going to sneak up on you, the kind that's going to injure you, like that kind of. So basically like a metaphor for like a wolf in the woods, like something that's going to come get you. Right. And like, to me, like the most obvious, clean, modern example would be like the shark in Jaws is sort of like that. It's like a cave.
100%.
It's something that's
just doing what he does.
Yeah. And you are, no matter how smart you are, no matter where you are on the food chain, whatever, like you are at a disadvantage and he's going to get you. The other kind, she said, was, she actually described it as nature monsters and nurture monsters. So nature ones are like that, caveman monsters. Other ones are monsters that are scary because they screw with your expectation. And like, so for example, like in The Omen, the little boy, normally are adorable. Normally you want to play with a little boy. And, you know, like there's nothing scary about a little boy. What's creepy that he's not a normal little boy. Or like the dog in Cujo. That's another like, you know, like, oh wait, but I love dogs. Well, not this dog. Or you know, I don't know, the woman in Fatal Attraction. You know, like this is like, oh
the
wait,
rabbit boiler,
affair. Like this is the weird little sex thing I got. No, like she's gonna come and boil your pet bunny or whatever the thing was. Like so I guess when I'm trying to come up with a story, it's like, well, which basic type am I going for here? So in D versus M, I think I'm kind of picking from both sides. For like the caveman scary, I'm doing dinosaurs because it's like it's something that could bite you, it's something that could eat you. It's like eyes watching you. It's something, you know, like it's an animal you have to do.
Not really
aliens.
Not an ally of the army or the aliens.
It's an elemental thing. It's a nature thing. Like you just gotta hope it kind of goes your way. But on the other side, I kind of flipped the script with my aliens where I could have made the aliens look like anything, but I liked the idea of like, what if I do like just the little gray aliens, which aren't that scary, you know? And a lot of people think like, oh, like a lot of people have affectionate ideas about the little gray aliens. So it's like, well, I'll just make them bad guys. I'll try to make them scary. And that will be part of what's scary about them. It's like, well, they're only 4 feet tall and they're the big, like,
Right.
It's Close Encounters, but like, no, they have guns and they're going to do crazy things.
Right. And they have gas. They have gas that makes you lose your mind.
It makes you psychotic and hallucinate. Like, there's just all these weird things where it's like, just let's recast them, but make them look basically the same.
Right.
Yeah.
And they can blow perfect holes in the side of buildings that
perfect holes. And
certain writers can never not think about.
And vaporize. Just like really horrific violence, and that they're human-like enough to be creepy, and you can see hands and you can see facial expressions, but removed enough where you feel like there's no connection. Like they're not sympathetic, they're not understanding, they're not. So
they have a purpose on Earth that has nothing to do with humans.
Yeah, definitely for me, I would have to go with like, I love making monsters that people don't expect. Because like you were saying with Cujo and Jaws, that's, a caveman. But if you have things like, I mean, let's face it, besides Chucky, you have all these Conjuring movies that are based around Annabelle. People think that, hey, okay, I have this little toy that's supposed to bring a kid joy, but in reality, it's being possessed by the devil. So when you could create a monster that people are like, could share a childhood memory with that brought them joy, that's what's terrifying, because you're taking their greatest like enjoyment in life and turning it into a nightmare.
Yes. Yeah.
So. But
and I think they're both cool, like either side. And it's especially interesting if you can sort of blend them, that you're kind of doing both. Like to me, like a vampire, if off the top of my head, is sort of both. Like it's the sort of like it's flipped, because especially like the modern idea of the vampire, it's like cultured and polite and sort of sexy in a weird way, and all these attractive qualities.
Right.
Yeah.
But then there's the caveman thing where it's like it's watching you in the dark. It doesn't like we all eat food, it eats blood. We all sleep in bed, it sleeps in a coffin. It's we're just kind of like, well, like it's just different.
Yeah, vampires done scary are like spiders, but the whole world is their spider web.
Yeah.
It's like everything you do is potentially attracting a vampire, including just the act of inviting them into your house. Like being polite equals your death. I don't know. It's just this is a fun conversation, because this is another part of horror that is, I don't want to say taken for granted. It's just so obvious we don't really think about it much. Like horror is scary, but what's scary about horror? There has to be some type of monster.
Yeah.
For we just did a story called The Message that had a monster in it, but it's a mini, so you get in and you get out. When I do Ransom Notes, which is a religious horror, you never see the monster exactly, because you're in the belly of the monster. Like the whole thing is the monster. This is just what a society would look like living inside of a monster. Like you're behind the dragon that's protecting the gold now. Like what's that world?
That's neat imagery.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me. I mean, I'm just going to talk about food related. It's kind of like how you cook a lobster. You slowly boil it. You don't put it directly in hot water at first. So that's a great analogy comparing to the cult. They act nice in the beginning. It's like, okay, they're really nice people, and then when the shit hits the fan, you're already belly deep in, and you don't know how to get out.
Right. Yep. That's just it. Or do you want to get out?
Yeah, exactly.
And how do you leave your loved ones in the belly of the beast? So it's like every layer of getting out of the monster is scarier than the monster.
Yeah.
But then when you get out of the monster, you got to deal with the whole thing. You can't attack its gallbladder anymore. Like now you got to fight the teeth and the claws and the scales and all of its defenses on the outside. So
But that's the great thing about monster making. I mean, you have all these different cultures all around the world. Like we all have our own version of Bigfoot, and we all have our own versions of dragons. All these things, the myths from like reality. Okay, this animal sometimes got confused with a sea serpent that was really big. I can't remember the exact name of the animal, but it's like it grows up to like 30 feet long. Yeah, it's some type of fish. But even back then with the whole giant octopus, until like only a couple decade ago or whatever, did we actually realize that we had a real life giant octopus. It wasn't as big as movies make it out to be, but that's the thing. We've always even back then have came up with monsters, and I mean that's the thing. People love to be scared, and people love to make stories.
Well, and that's such a fun. I mean,
we're all scared.
Yeah.
What's that? I'm sorry.
I was just saying we're all scared all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like we're all scared already. We just want somebody to make us feel good about being scared.
Yeah.
It's like that giggle you get like when somebody sneaks up behind you by accident and scares the crap out of you. And it's like the first thing you do when you look at them is like, oh, you scared me. It's like you get a smile on your face immediately.
Yeah.
But that is like you have to take somebody so far for them to feel instant relief.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what being scared does safely. Like horror movies, books, comics, anything like any horror entertainment it's escapism. It's just higher up the food chain. Mm-hmm. So you almost, as a creator, I feel like you have to meet it. Like you can't just like poke at the scary. Like you can't push it with a wet spaghetti noodle. You have to commit to it. And it's not for everybody. There's some things that I just don't like. Like when we did Hellraiser, the comic, there was a point in that it wasn't for me. And that's not a knock on the book. It's just that was where my disconnect was. That could have tied somebody to that book as hard as it got me away from it. Who knows? Yeah. But no, it's like good horror has to. You just gotta the suspension of disbelief. It's all pro wrestling. Like it really is. Like if you want to tell a good story, watch wrestling, and then apply that. Whatever makes you chuckle, whatever you enjoy, apply that to what you back to what you're doing.
But that's why with go ahead.
Oh, I it's funny you say that, make that comparison, because I have a friend who's a comic artist and a story. He comes up with the stories for his comics. Scott Lost, you guys should look him up. But he was a pro wrestler for a long time, and he finally retired. He's a great guy, and he's on a podcast with another friend of mine called Making Comics. It's great if you're interested in like making comics, enough. But anyway, he was a pro wrestler forever and retired, and he was talking in just the last podcast I listened to about how he did kind of apply some of his experience being a pro wrestler and coming up with stories and coming up with like how to even like the flow of a match, like to figure out how can I apply and reuse some of this in like creating a comic story. It was really interesting.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Everything in a pro wrestling match is a beta test because you are directly engaging with a crowd that is telling you that they enjoyed the last thing that you did, but not the last match that you had, the last thing that you did 40 seconds ago. Because if that punch does not look like a punch, it's hard to get them back. And that might be the first thing to happen in a match. So it's a very cool thing to look at, especially if you get a chance to go live. Like it's a very cool thing to watch the crowd and watch the wrestlers because it directly correlates to everything that we do.
Yeah.
It's a live version of writing a story with no pants on sometimes. That's neither here nor there.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah.
But with horror movies, there's been times where people mostly focus on the jump scares. But I think really with the 80s, that's where we got to really see a lot of scary horror movies where the monster has an actual personality and an actual, things it likes and don't like. When you have like Chucky, Freddy Krueger, even with Michael Myers and Jason, they don't talk, but the way they like to kill people and everything, it just gives them more interest and personality. It's like, okay, why do they choose to do it this way instead of just not talking?
I mean, look at the rise of like the fascination with serial killers as villains and boogeymen in movies and TV. Like, yeah, that's a full. And it's interesting. I never thought about it before. If you look at horror movies in like the 50s or 40s or even the 60s, it's usually it's like weirdo aliens or monsters, or like they're not very complicated. Like, you could go all the way back and you could say like, well, Frankenstein's monster or Dracula. Okay, sure. But most of them weren't like that.
Yeah.
But somewhere around the 70s or 80s, and certainly in the 90s, now like there's a personality and they're kind of doing that. Or like, my go-to favorite monster has always been werewolves. I just love a good werewolf story. And I think even that, like where the werewolf itself might not have a personality, they kind of add this weird pathos by like, well, we'll develop the person, before transformation, and then you have that weird battle between the two halves.
Yeah,
I never thought. I got to think about that more later. That suddenly our monsters kind of have personalities and motivations, and I mean, Hannibal.
Yeah.
So, when you guys make monsters, how quickly do you think of weaknesses? How quickly do you think of a way to beat the monster?
It really determines. I mean,
I don't.
Sometimes like if you go with the cliche, like I'm gonna make a zombie comic, do you go with the cliche like how it has been all these years where like you hit them in the head, do they die, or do you die a different way? I mean, sometimes it's just better to just create the monster and really talk about what makes them powerful and scary instead of the weakness at first.
It's hard for me to think about stopping something that has to be unstoppable for a time.
Yeah.
It's, like, I guess I'll get to it at a certain point, but I just don't feel like it's a problem that should be solved. Like, I feel like you should, I don't know if y'all have seen Godzilla King Kong yet.
Yes.
Spoiler, sorry guys, but Godzilla just walks in the water. King Kong had no answer. Like in real life, Godzilla was like, "All right, you know what time it is. Had it not been for the robot, you also would have been dead. But we worked together, so put the axe down and I'll leave." Like but if you're doing something justice, like it should just end. A tornado, there's no cure for a tornado. There's nobody putting like missile arrays in their yards to stop a tornado. You just have to hope you get past it. Like that. Tornadoes are like our closest Godzilla in our normal everyday life. That's unpredictable. Hurricanes you can kind of see coming. Tornadoes, like I don't know if you get tornadoes where you are, Gary, but Ronnie, I know you've lived where tornadoes are.
Oh yeah, I used to live in Tornado Alley.
Yeah, you don't know. You don't have I hope this is just a thunderstorm, because sometimes it's not.
I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, so in the summer, just being outside will kill you. Like exactly. Yeah.
I
mean,
especially if you're light skinned.
yeah, no kidding. Yeah, like, God, yeah, but I know I honestly I kind of feel like when it comes to like whatever the monster or the adversary, I don't, off the top of my head, and maybe someday I'll write something where that is important, but I don't know if the weakness is important. And even if it is important, I don't think it would be important to tell the reader, because like, to me, that's just weird. I don't know, just the concept. Like, let's say werewolves had never been invented, and we're inventing them right now, and we're saying like, all right, so you get bit, and every full moon you turn into a monster, and you eat people, and your one weakness is silver. Is Jason still with us? Is he?
His mic is muted.
Okay. Well, look. So we'll say like, okay, silver can kill them.
Yeah.
If we were coming up with werewolves for the first time right now, and we were going to tell a story about it, my inclination would be like, all right, well, maybe, you know, at the very end, the werewolf gets killed by accident, not realizing that silver would work. Because I think if you tell the reader, like, silver will kill the werewolf, well, now it's like countdown to the protagonist, you know, getting his hands on a silver bullet or a silver
only a matter of time to
it's like you've now told the reader or the viewer or whoever where you're going. And it kind of makes it less interesting to see. Like, I mean, with D versus, not that I should be the model, but you can see like the proof is in the, like, I'm walking the walk. D versus M, I have in my head ideas about what are the weaknesses of the aliens. It isn't for me to spell it out. Like, because why would the reader doesn't need to know that? The reader should be on the side of the people who are in over their heads. And like, if we look at Jaws, again, like classic monster thing, like no one, you know, we're not saying early on, like the best way to take care of the shark would be to stuff an explosive tank in his mouth and then shoot it. Like, I mean, that's like, okay, well now I know what we're doing for the rest of this movie. Like, we're just waiting for that to happen. I like the idea that there's aborted, failed attempts. Like, well, maybe we can try, you know, making it drown with these barrels. Maybe we can do this. Maybe, like, that's fun. Like, or like maybe have a good idea that would work, but then like you screw it up. But no, I don't think the reader needs to know that. Maybe the writer does.
Yeah.
All we need to know for sure is we need a bigger boat.
Yeah, exactly. Right. No, but with the reader, I mean, like you're saying, more with the werewolves, you know, talk more about why they're werewolves, because when you get like, okay, they turn into a werewolf because of full moon, you know, when the reader thinks about that, they're going to think, oh crap, is there a full moon outside? And even now, when you go to hospitals and stuff like that, they're like, oh man, it's a busy night. We got this person getting shot. We have this person coming in doing this. And at hospitals, they're like, it must be a full moon because everyone's going crazy tonight. So if you could like focus more on what makes this thing powerful and why this thing came into existence, that's what's really the scary part, especially when you take something simple like a full moon that's supposed to be beautiful and you make it into like basically a origin story for something horrible.
Just as a side thing, it's I wish I had it handy. I think it's out in my living room. There's this werewolf kind of pulp novel I read when I was in high school, and because I think I was in I haven't reread it in 20 years, so I don't know if how it holds up. But when I read it when I was 16, I thought it was the coolest book I'd ever read in my life. But anyway, the premise was that werewolves, not only is silver do nothing to them, they're basically immortal, and that's the curse. The curse is you will live out the rest of time turning into, you know, like this is the
turning into a werewolf on a
moon. So it tells this whole story about a couple of the werewolves starting like 4000 BC and going to like present day. But the last chapter skips ahead like 1500 years or something like that, like 1,000 years into the future. Yeah. And this werewolf was trying to flee. He had this idea like, well, maybe if I can get away from the moon, I'll never transform anymore. And he you know, snuck onto a ship and flew off somewhere and didn't realize where the ship was going was some planet that had like 13 moons, so there's always a full moon. So, except for like 1 hour a month, there's like no full moon or something, but generally it's a full moon all the time. I don't know. I always just thought that was a funny idea. Like, you know, it's like, what is it of special? Is it like, could any full moon work to change special about a full moon? But
yeah, I imagine it would be kind of like Superman, where it's like different colored suns would have different colored effects on his power, right?
Though Guillermo del Toro, in he will talk for hours about monsters and the importance of monsters and the ideas behind monsters. He's always made it very clear in all of his interviews that you never want to over-explain. You know, there should be some mystery and some magic. Like, and so like you don't need to do like this. Well, what is it about a full moon? And isn't that just reflected light? So shouldn't the sun?
That's no fun, right?
Science of a werewolf, like stop it. You know, like we're in a different space now. This should be a dream logic. This should be, you know, a more
suspension of disbelief. It's like let go of what should be. Like, this is the world that you're in now,
right?
You know,
let's just go with it. Like, let's not over science. You know, let's not figure out like how does magic work.
Right.
Like, no. It's magic. No. That's how it works.
There's no why. Like, you're scared. Like, these are zombies. Run away. Don't wonder what made them zombies.
Like, no. You're not in the right headspace. You need to like, okay, there's zombies.
Right, yeah. I need you here with me so we can all be safe together.
Right.
Yeah, because with zombies, I mean, you could just explain it, you know, apocalyptical thing. You had like, you know, experiments and all that stuff, but some of the best movies, especially now, going back with Annabelle, people love supernatural, especially when it's with ghosts, because the thing is, unlike with werewolves and other things, a lot of these ghosts are people that used to be alive and now they're around here for a reason and they're tormenting people for a reason.
Right.
And I think that's what really people draw into, because like I said, with YouTube now, there's so many different YouTube channels of people who are just getting together and going to different places that are haunted and just, you know, videotaping it because people love ghosts.
Yeah. Well, and I think, especially when it comes to ghosts and possession, like the Exorcist movie or whatever, stuff like that, I think what makes it super scary for some people is like, if we're talking about zombies, all right, I rig a barbed wire fence and I get some shotguns and I board up my windows and I'm probably fine. You know, like, I mean, like there's things you can do. And I think the thing is with like ghosts and demons and like all that kind of stuff, people who that's their bag. It's this idea that like, there's nothing you can do. Like, you're not hiding from the poltergeist. You're not gonna like, well, if, you know, the Exorcist devil shows up, I'll just whack it with my bat. You know, like, I mean, that's not like you're helpless. And I think that, you know, that's powerful.
Yeah. And then you got like the whole Ouija board involved and all that crazy stuff. Like,
that's what I like about human monsters is they're for everyday life with people like us. There's really not a point where you would just visualize ending somebody. Yeah. But with the human monster, it almost makes them more unstoppable because now you can't squash the bug because it's a person. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, no matter what they do, you still have to get over something to stop it. And like, there's your extra layer. Like, there's no silver bullet for that because you need a silver bullet to lock in on what you need to do. And you can't. You know, it's the end of 7. Yeah. You know, Kevin Spacey knew that his character had to die in order for him to fulfill his own serial killer fantasy. But Morgan Freeman's character knew that, hey, he is a police officer, so he can't just kill this guy. And I now, like, Morgan Freeman is trying to defuse the bomb of Brad Pitt before he reacts to what Kevin Spacey has done. That's terror to me. Like
Such a
that's
good scene.
yes,
It is a good movie.
Terror. And like you're watching it almost like you were in the
and
desert.
you're so torn. You're so torn. Like
Yeah.
you know rationally, correctly, yes, Brad Pitt should take the high road.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to bring her back. I'm sorry, spoilers for 7, but it's what 20 years old. But like, you know, but like, you know, there's this would be purely revenge. You know, like what you're doing. Which I mean, for the movie explicitly, it's vengeance.
Yeah.
Right.
But at the same time, you're kind of like, fucking shoot this guy. You know,
exactly.
Like you know, like. And probably a jury's going to give you a break anyway. You know, when they hear this crazy story, they'll be like, I don't know, man. Like, we'll give you time served. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Do you feel bad?
Yeah.
You know, are you okay?
Yeah, like this poor guy. Oh, this poor guy you shot in a field. Oh, you know, like, who's going to feed his cat? You know, I mean, like, come on. Like, he's a monster.
Right. Will you take his cat? You'll take his cat. Okay.
Yeah.
You're on house arrest for 5 years and
feed
take care
his
of
golden retriever. All right. Well, then I guess we'll just call it square then. Yeah. All right.
They said the dog's not bad. He just doesn't have a place to go now.
And pretty much with the whole serial killers, that's why nowadays you could go on, you know, TV and watch Criminal Minds and all this other stuff, because those monsters are real. There are really people out there who do sick things, and that's what really makes a lot of people afraid. Is that, hey, especially, you know, for us who have children or little ones that we love and take care of, that we get afraid all the time because we know that we see monsters on the TV. And I don't know how much you guys get it, but Florida is a really big one where I'm always getting Amber Alerts of some kid being kidnapped and stuff like that. And that's real terror, you know?
Yeah. Tell me about it.
Where my little nephew, up.
Oh my gosh.
What's that? Is he frozen? Okay. Both of you are frozen.
I'm not frozen.
You stay there.
No,
I
just didn't want to move. I just didn't want to move in case y'all were frozen. No, I'm good.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Gotcha.
That's all good. No worries, man.
No.
I got too scared. I couldn't take it.
You missed it. Your screen there, and Jason was standing still. I'm like, oh, both of you guys stopped. And then he started talking.
He's messing with you.
I was like a night at the museum.
Did I miss? You were making the point of like real life monsters, like people out there,
you know, that's what's more scary, is because you make friends with your next door neighbor, but you don't realize that they could be a real threat.
Well, tell me about it. Like I haven't on this channel. I haven't talked too much about my day job, but I do visual aids for felony trials.
Yeah.
So, it's like murder, child abuse, sex crime, like all the worst people doing the worst things.
Yeah.
And so, I remember when I first started, when I was in college, I had an internship at my local medical examiner's office, which is basically like a ward. And I was interning for the forensic anthropologist. That's what I was like. Again, I was sort of the anthropology guy in college. I thought that was going to be my career. Yeah. And the forensic anthropologist, one of her duties was like, if they found a skeleton in the desert, like you had to go out and do the recovery, and you had to sort out, you would have people searching, but the average person doesn't know the difference between, a dog bone or a cow bone and a person bone. So you have someone out there and say like, no, this is, you leave that there, and no, like this is evidence, kind of sorting. So I was out doing stuff like that. And we had, this is not a long story, I promise. So
no worries.
There's a patch of desert kind of out away from the city where they had found several sets of skeletal remains of women. And it was possibly a dumping ground for like a serial killer.
Oh, no way.
And in learning about
that's crazy.
It was crazy. I'll tell you guys like all the crazy stories sometimes off air. Like, but it's unbelievable. Anyway, it made me very keenly aware that there are lots of murders. There are lots of things like that. There are lots of unidentified victims. There are lots of cases where they never even have a suspect. And in your life in a big city, you have probably brushed shoulders with someone who killed someone once. And
that's crazy.
And it's just out there. Just, you know, like just walking around and nobody
living a normal life.
Living a normal life, and no one's been able to, you know, put it together yet. And that, you know, I don't know how old I was. I was in my early 20s. I was in college or late teens or something. I mean, that was kind of crazy to think about, you know? And yeah, like, or like you said, maybe you didn't just brush shoulders. Maybe they're your next door neighbor. Maybe it's your mailman. Maybe it's the person who sold you a coffee, you know? Like,
maybe you argued with them in traffic.
Yeah.
How crazy is
about that
you
all
know?
the time.
Yeah.
I see so many road rage things, you know, where it's like, I will refrain from honking in so many cases where it's like, oh my God, what is this person doing? But it's like, you know what? I don't know who this person is.
You don't know.
It's not worth it. Just let it go. Yeah. Let it go. Serenity now. Like, that's fine. Yep. Because there are, and it's not a lot. And this is the thing I emphasize, and I have to remind myself to keep my mental health. It's not most people. Most people are fine. They're not necessarily good, but they're fine. You know, but there are monsters out there, and you don't know who they are, and it's just something, you know.
You know, it reminds me of Unbreakable. You remember at the end of Unbreakable, like he would touch those people, and there would be like innocuous people that didn't really do anything. But then you have a random home invader. They're just getting off work. Just getting off work.
I love like
somebody's house.
The range of little things, like you had like a shoplifter, and then you had like a date rapist, and you had like all these, you know, there's all these different things. But then then there was like the big hit, which like the crazy home invader.
Like, this is the one I have to do something about.
Yeah, it's like this. Okay, if I'm gonna go with one, this is the guy. God, I love that movie, Unbreakable.
Such a good movie.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Or
the whole trilogy was good.
Yeah. That for sure is still my favorite, I think, of the three. But
what is Unbreakable?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I like the rest of them because they were all together. Like Split was good on its own, but
it was okay.
There was nothing like Unbreakable.
Yeah. And Glass had
was so
moment,
fresh.
You know. Yeah, it was. Well, and I love, for a while, I was always telling people, now we have a lot more to pick from, but I was always telling people, and they said, like, what's your favorite superhero movie? I was like, kind of Unbreakable. Like, which, I mean, it very, like, you debate, does that count? But, like, I was like that. I thought that was, like, the best superhero origin story I had ever seen, especially.
It was unexpected, you know, because I never saw The Sixth Sense, but when I went and saw Unbreakable, I was expecting a movie like The Sixth Sense. Yeah. And then when it led off with like the comic book stats, I'm like, oh, okay, like this is something different. And it was 100%. It was so good. And
I loved, and you know, we'll steer back to monsters, but I loved the heart it had, where it did feel very fundamentally like a story about how a son can kind of lionize his father, and like imagine that, like, you know, it's like, could you beat up Bruce Lee, you know, like that kind of crazy thing where it's like it had a really good sentimental heart to it, in addition to all the kind of neat ideas of realistically how would that, you know, play out. But
you know, but in a sense, to kind of pull it back, the kid kind of looked at his dad as really cool, but he did kind of look at him like a monster too. Like, he was not. It was like, I remember like when he had tied all the weight to the weight bench. Like the kid goes and he's standing behind the wall and he's barely watching him.
Yeah,
it's like now we're getting into like, this is beyond my dad is really strong. Like,
it's kind of like
something different.
Yeah.
But no, it's just another good movie, like just another good movie, and I do see a lot of what we do even the horror aspects in a movie like Unbreakable.
Well, yeah, most definitely, because
for me,
go ahead.
Who couldn't swim at the time, it was like no matter what he could do, Bruce Willis couldn't swim.
That's right.
And then at the end of the movie, like he falls into a swimming pool when he can't swim with a liner over the top of
Oh, that was so scary.
That's awful to think about.
Even
that
if you could swim.
Scary.
Like I can't swim, and I saw that, and it's like that's terrifying. Like
it's like ice fishing. It's like ice fishing on a river. I always look at that and I'm like, nope, because if I fall in the hole in 2 seconds, I'm no longer underneath the hole anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's just terrible. Like that's a tough way to go.
Well, I remember when I was in, I don't know, I was probably 11 or 12. Just to do it, because you're an 11 or 12-year-old boy, I jumped into a pool fully clothed. Yeah. And I could not believe how impossible it was to swim if you're wearing jeans and a shirt. I was really afraid, like, oh, this might have been a mortal mistake. Like this, like it was a lot of work to get out of the deep end. That was stupid. But that's something you see it in TV. I mean, this is a terrible excuse, like, but you see it in TV and movies all the time. People swimming around in their clothes. It's really hard. If you're out there, if you're even thinking, don't do it. Don't, or do it in the shallow end so you can see how bad it is.
Yeah.
Right. Do it safely. Like drown as safely as possible.
Yeah.
But going with the movie Unbreakable, you know, you had the character, he was willing to kill hundreds of people to fulfill his fantasy. Yeah. And that's the thing, is that some people out there, they want their biggest dreams to come true, and they're willing to hurt people because of it. So especially a movie like that, he wanted to have superheroes exist. He wanted to find that person that represented his biggest memories and his biggest desires. So who's to say, you know, people aren't willing to go out there to, like, okay, I'm gonna kill someone so I could get $1 million or whatever, you know? So yeah.
We'll be famous. Well, we're seeing it, you know, sadly, every month or so, with someone going and shooting up a mall or a school.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm not going to pretend to understand their motivations, but I would think at least some are thinking, like, I'll be famous. Like, you know, I'll get on the news. Like, they'll show my picture. Everybody's going to know my name.
Yep.
For sure.
Man. You know, and you wonder, like, and I hope everybody understands this is not me minimizing this, but it just kind of goes back to, like, this unstoppable thing that I was mentioning earlier of what if there was a group of 4,000 people that said, our job is to go out and kill people until we find one person who we can't kill. Like, what? Like, that makes no logical sense. Like, how do you stop that?
Yeah.
One day we're going to find somebody who we cannot kill, but until then, we're going to kill everybody. Like, what do you do with that? Like, that's some intense motivation that, you know, Shyamalan gave Mr. Glass.
Right.
You know, I know if I exist and I'm fragile, that the opposite of me exists somewhere.
And that just goes on to a topic that I got to talk about. I don't know if YouTube will shut us down for it, but if you go on the History Channel, like the website, and read some of the topics they talk about, you will actually find out how when birth control first came out, they were using Puerto Rico to test it and putting, like, the pills within the water.
Really?
Like, yeah. It's directly on the, like, my in-laws, they're all Puerto Rican. My father-in-law, he's 80, and he could tell you that literally when the guy that was, like, in charge of it, he wanted to do it to the Hispanics because he was a racist. And directly on the website, we'll talk about how like some women were having miscarriages or women weren't able to have children at all because they needed to test it. I mean, even with war, with Vietnam, how many people got tested with drugs that they didn't know what they were taking until they got back, and now they have all these problems.
Right. Yeah. No, it's horrifying. That's disgusting. Yeah. I had never heard that about birth control.
Yeah, I'll send you the article. It's like I said, I never heard about it, but yeah, it's directly on the website of the History Channel.
Yeah, but these are the reasons why people crave maximum horror. You know what I mean? Because it's like it's still escapism. Like, because there's so much just stupid shit. Like, we all need just to, like, get away sometimes.
Well, you know what I thought about? Not to be too, I don't know, whatever, but, like,
it sounds like you're about to be too whatever, Gary.
I'm going to be too whatever, maybe just for a half second. We can run away from it since I am.
That's all right.
I was thinking about, like, this, and I was thinking about how, like, the script flipping monsters. So like the Saint Bernard is Cujo, the little boy is the Omen, like, you know, stuff like that. And like one we've been seeing all too much of in the news is like, you know, the cop that kills you. You know, like, I mean, it's just like this. I mean, that is kind of an archetypical monster. Like this idea of like, but wait a minute, you're supposed to be helping, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that kind of is like, it's hitting just the right note, but.
Yeah, I actually have a perfect example. Like I'm sitting here staring at my stack of minis. Like this comic book starts with this woman who looks dark and mysterious, right? And so you're waiting for something. You can't see her whole face, so you know she might be up to no good. But then you have the camera guy who is also kind of creepy, like
weird
as a stereotype. But then as the story goes on, number one, like the artwork is just A1 stellar, fantastic from Aaron. But as the story goes on, like
I can't believe what he's doing. By the way, I can't believe what he's doing with those mini comics. Like
they look ridiculous. I love it every month. I love it.
Guy's so talented.
It's like this monster was neither one of them. So it's like in 8 pages, you ride the roller coaster of which one of these people are bad, which, I mean, she orchestrated it, but still, you don't expect.
Yeah.
At the end, like she was there for something else. And you never really knew who she was. That's the way it should be. Like, you should be left scratching your head. Like, imagine analyzing Twilight Zone. Imagine if Twilight Zone existed in the era of 2-hour breakdown. You know what I mean? 2-hour YouTube breakdowns at the end of every episode.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It would not have been as fun. Like I love 2-hour breakdowns, but it was what it was because we just consumed it. And then it was ours.
How boring would YouTube reaction videos be to a Twilight Zone, where they would all be the same? They'd like through the whole thing, you'd have someone just staring at the screen, and then in the last 5 minutes, it'd be like, "What?" And then like that would be the whole video for every single one.
That's the good ones. The good ones are what? The bad ones are the bad ones are
whoa. And then
Yeah, some days I still wake up at 6 a.m. and I'll turn Twilight Zone on because it's just easy to have on in the background. But and it also helps. Like it also helps me write because those are just solid stories. Yeah,
they're very solid, and they're like it's a good. I mean, if you ever want just sort of to bury yourself in like concepts, you know, just like a little one sentence, like, you know, like it, that's all they all can be like one little clean sentence of like, here's the idea. And they're kind of perfect for episodic television because you couldn't do like a whole novel about most of them. Like it's just a little idea.
Twilight Zone was YouTube before we had YouTube. Like, it was YouTube and TikTok. You fit 2 or 3 episodes in one sitting. They're all good. And now looking back at them, it's like they have like A-list cast. Like, that's the other reason that these were so good. Is like everybody who was somebody back then was on Twilight Zone.
Did a tour on Tyler. Yeah.
So it's just, horror is so broad. It's so much more broad than what you think. I was telling Ronnie before you got on, Gary, that I've been trying to watch at least a horror movie a week. And
finally watched The Thing. Gosh,
I did The Thing.
Oh yes, very good.
Loved it.
So good,
but,
right?
It was so good, beyond anything I would have expected. Good.
I know.
It was a waste of time. Like, I knew, like 40 minutes in, I was like, I wasted my own time not watching this a long time ago. But last week I watched the first Nightmare on Elm Street for the first time.
Oh yeah. Oh, for the first time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pokey.
It's the best.
But that movie is scary. That movie has some like really scary parts in it.
It does.
Like, you know, to see Freddy Krueger like with his arms like
the
8 feet long.
Yeah.
That's just
scary. Or her feet sinking into the steps.
Oh man. Yeah. Like, just little stuff like that, nightmare stuff. Like, they got it.
People forget that that first Nightmare on Elm Street had kind of a different tone than any of the other. It's a little bit like the first Rocky or the first Rambo. Like, it's just it's kind of a different thing than like all the sequels after, where it was for sure the scariest. I thought the first one.
Yeah, 100. That was a scary movie. It really was. It was good. But you know, it was it seems like he's one of those characters, because I remember Freddy from when we cleaned the movie theater, and I remember like the posters got less and less scary, and it became more and more just about like what Freddy was going to do. And it was at the time, and now looking back at it, it was Urkel. It was Steve Urkel showing up and being, you know what I mean, and being like a menace to Carl Winslow.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Steve Urkel showing up and being buddies with the Winslows, because he was always there. Yeah. You know, it's 2 totally different things. I gotta tell y'all one day about my fantasy for a Steve Urkel comic book. But
wow, that's you don't hear that very often. They're not like, I gotta make my
it'd be such a good book too, man. It'd be such a good book. But I was talking about it with my wife over the weekend, but I'll tell y'all about it one day. I think it'll be cool, but I just don't want to get copyrighted. My first big foray, like with a big name story. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, Ronnie, what else you got? Well, what else? Because you kind of right the ship here. So
yeah.
What's next with the monsters?
I'm like with what I'm making, or just in general.
Just monsters in general. Like, what's your? I don't know. Well, like, what makes you giggly about monsters?
Just the idea of seeing them come to life. Like, you have so many different monsters out there that piques different people's like phobias and stuff like that, like with arachnophobia and people afraid of clowns. I just love seeing the process of why this person is afraid of that monster, and actually seeing the monster come to life. Because if you just read the script of The Thing, but then you actually watch the scene of like them trying to bring that guy back to life, and you see his chest cavity just become a giant trap, you know?
Yeah.
That got me. That got me, and I loved it.
So
that got me.
And then the head turning into a spider, you know? It's just the idea. It's just the idea of like, how am I going to make this monster be terrifying, but give it its own personality? Like, you know, Freddy with his sense of humor, but the way he has his glove and why he's wearing the suit and everything, like, or even with Jason, like when Jason first came back after his mother was killed, he had a paper bag over his face. But then all of a sudden, you gave him that hockey mask, and now it's iconic, and now you can't see him without it.
It's branding now. Like now, it's like I'll kill you, but you can buy this mask for $12.99. Also,
Ronnie, if you had, and Jason, I want to ask you the same thing. Ronnie, if you had to pick your all-time favorite monster, or anything you could categorize maybe as a monster, even if it's a person or something, like what do you think is like your ultimate your favorite? Like if you had to pick one.
Oh man, that's hard.
Or even if it's a category, like if I'm not, but like if it's like vampires or something like that, whatever. But.
It would have to be the supernatural, just for the fact that you have something that you can't kill, and you don't know if the house you're walking into or literally the grocery store you're walking into, was it built on like some type of supernatural Indian burial ground, or
sure.
Is this house possessed because there was someone that died in it? Just the whole idea of that, and then you include the devil and all that. It's just supernatural is just really big, and I like it.
Yeah, like the occultish kind of.
Like, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like what made this person all of a sudden screw up in their head, where now they're trying to find this person and make a sacrifice to someone that they believe is real, but how did it come into existence in the first place? So yeah,
I read often about the Pope from, I can't remember what year it was. I want to say it was like the 1500s that got burned at the stake because he had made this pact with the devil, and they had found all this paperwork that he had like started to like summon all these demons and stuff, and he was a pope.
Mm-hmm.
I never heard that story.
No, I'll send it to you. Like,
yeah,
I get a kick out of stuff like that, but I totally understand what Ronnie's saying. But if I'm big on human monsters, I am, like, because that's just kind of what is personal to me. But if I had to pick like a visual of a monster that's scary, it has to be big. And it had like that moment of hopelessness that people get before you see the monster in the movie, when the person is just looking up in terror. And I think that the representation of that is the alien in Aliens. To be out in the furthest reaches of space on a ship, and there's this thing with eggs that is fine to stalk you, and you have nowhere to go. You have nowhere to go. This guy is an android, and so it's like it's all just, that would be the situation without the monster would be enough to drive you mad. But now you add a real alien that's not a gray alien, and that's not, banging on a keyboard trying for world domination. Right. No, this is you domination. Right. And it's got two mouths. There's nothing you can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's babies coming. That's it. That's it. Like, it would be hard to write that again, because it's like every condition was its optimal version.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. That movie, gosh, I got to rewatch both the Alien and Aliens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are both so good, and in different ways. But
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like I was raised thinking that those were sci-fi movies, but older me knows, like, they're just in space. It's a horror movie in space.
Yeah. Especially that first one is very much just like Monster in the House,
Yeah, because you don't see much of the alien, and it's just them running from it. It's just brilliant.
Yeah, and people disappearing.
Yeah,
brilliant. There's not even the deaths on screen are fairly tame, with the exception of the iconic chestburster scene.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't really see a lot of graphic violence. Like it's not, it's usually just like quick cuts, and you don't really see much. I think they probably just
for example, it's the captain. when he's in the vents and you don't see how he dies, but all you see is the alien just jumping at him.
Yeah.
Right. They got away with more gruesome with Bishop because he was an android.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It was kind of milky instead of bloody,
Yeah.
So
has always been, I don't know why that works so well, but every time there's an android in an alien movie, I just can't wait to see it, because you always know that it's just a truism. This thing's going to get torn up somehow at some point.
He's here to get torn up so that
that's all he's for. That's the purpose of the android.
Exactly.
First, to be kind of creepy and weird. That's number one. And second, like dismember this thing and look at its weird android guts. But there's something about that design. I'm just always mesmerized. It's like, this was really interesting, the direction they went with this, where it's none of it's really right. It's all weird tubing and little bubbly looking things and and
it looks like a warehouse.
Yeah.
It's like Dunder
Mifflin.
Mifflin.
A pile of surgical supplies or something. It's
Right.
just weird. Like, what am I even looking at? It's very cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Why do you have clear plastic tubing in space?
Yeah.
What is this doing?
Yeah.
But no, just another just like for a monster. Like, yes, you have Frankenstein, you have werewolves, you have Dracula, but you got to get past that, because at a certain point you do need the garbage disposal. Like, you do need that buzzsaw that's just there to kill. Like, there's no reasoning with it,
Yeah.
Yeah, and with the whole supernatural back to it, I mean, how many people, even if they're not supernatural, love the idea of just having like a dream catcher in their house because how beautiful it looks,
I'm fascinated with that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But they're like, okay, I like this because it has a meaning behind it. But, with the whole religion and supernatural, people always want to believe in a higher power. And with that higher power, there's always something that's the opposite of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, there's a lower power that's just as strong and just as bad as the other is good.
Yeah,
so.
And if you're even not religion, I mean, there's a lot of people that are superstitious with like, oh, don't walk under a ladder and all that stuff. So there are people out there that take this stuff really seriously, even if they're not religious. They just like, oh, I saw a black cat, got to run the other way.
People love magical thinking,
Yeah, exactly.
Even if it's like, a pitcher who feels like they have to touch their hat every time, or I guess if you see like in a pathological case, like OCD could sort of be thought of as like, magical thinking, but like, routines and little good luck thing. Like, oh, I always do this, like even in stuff, like I'm aware of it, but like, for example, if I know I have to give a presentation, like, it's like, well, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go and get breakfast someplace. I'm going to get some eggs and some bacon in me and some black coffee. And I'm going to allow time to do that. I'm going to wear like the nice presenting shirt. Like,
you're a black coffee guy. That's why we get along so well.
Is that it? Yeah, no, black coffee. It's the only way to go. But like, to me, like that could be. It's all sort of magical. It's like these are the things I do to get in the space where I feel ready.
Right.
Do I need to do any of those things? No, I know that rationally, but I would feel weird if I didn't. Like I would feel, this is the way I want to do it.
Right. Yeah. Yep. You carrying your wallet in your right pocket instead of your left pocket, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It can throw my whole day off. My my wallet's not in the right pocket, or it's like you didn't really need to put that plate of vegetables out in the sun for your crops to grow better.
Mm-hmm.
But your grandparents did it and your parents did it, and now you do it. It's cutting the ends off the pot roast, your great grandmother did it because her pot was smaller than the pot roast, but you do it because she did it, but you have a pot roast pan that's twice the size of hers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, an example I can think of. So I was raised Catholic. I'm not practicing anything as an adult, but like sometimes a religion, like for example, Easter came and went, and there was this feeling of like, should we do something? You know, like, and it felt weird not to do something. Like you should acknowledge somehow, even if it's just like, should we eat a jelly bean? Like, you know, like, I mean, what is there something, right? You know, like, I mean, and it's like, I have no connect, you know, and yet there's still this kind of idea of like, we can't do nothing for Christmas. You have to do something, you know, like it gets in there.
Yeah, this was the first year that I didn't observe my old religion's like annual observance.
Yeah.
And it was like, that is like the super send off. And last year was like COVID was still fresh, so nothing was really happening. But this year was like a choice. It was, nope, I'm not doing it. And I didn't want to, but it didn't make it feel any less weird because you've done one thing your whole life. And then that first year that you don't do it, it's different. It just is. Yeah.
No, I got it.
No, so no, I just wanted to. I totally agree with what you're saying. Is what I was saying. I wasn't trying to.
No, I
it's just
totally get it.
I don't. Yeah.
All right.
But yes.
Well, we're over the hour limit. We're at an hour and 10 minutes.
That went very fast.
Yeah. So as again, you know, go to Gary's Etsy, buy his books. I mean, they're that good. If you want a little taste, look at our reviews for it. I mean, he's doing great stuff.
Oh, thank
you. And he's working on your third book, right?
I'm writing the scripts for the third and fourth. So
nice.
I wanted to get both the scripts out of the way. I'm trying it different this time. I want to write the next two and then draw the next two, you know, in that order. Also, if you guys, anyone out there likes drawings, whatever, I'm in the middle of Doodle a Day April.
It's been really nice. You've been doing some good work.
It's been super nice, Gary. Like, I'm very much enjoying your doodles.
Oh, I appreciate. I'm trying to like do fun things each time. I'm also, because I'm pushing myself with the doodles. Boy, I'm eager to be done with the doodles. But in the meantime, you all can enjoy them. So that's at my Instagram. If you go to Dinosaurs versus Marsbots, Dinosaurs vs Marsbots at Instagram, go to check them out.
Yeah, all of his links are in the description if you want to check that out. And again,
for writers, Gary does have a very good YouTube channel. Like, it's very good to have on the background. Like, I enjoy your YouTube videos very, very much. There's a thumbs up. You just couldn't see it. It was off camera.
I appreciate that.
And again, my co-host, go to Mini Comics Bundle.
MiniComicBundles.com.
I did it wrong. I always guess wrong with this. Okay, there we go.
There it is.
Yeah, the mini comics are great. They really
are.
Great.
Yes,
they really are.
You know, I think some people out there, I was one of them, you might be a little prejudiced against mini comics. You might imagine it's like, oh, those are kind of like, I think I have an idea what they are. These are high quality, very cool, lovingly done, well written, well drawn, well packed for mailing. Like, I mean, they're legit, guys. So like, and they're a bargain. So I highly recommend them.
Yeah.
And
what you got, Ronnie?
And me, go to my coffee account. You'll see all the different holidays that I did so far. And I'm going to be making like a Mother's Day and then work on a Father's Day. And before.
That's gonna be scary, Ronnie.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what you do with those.
Yeah, I have some good ideas for Mother's Day and Father's Day. It's going to be fun. But and keep a lookout because I am going to have my physical comic, but I want to get people excited. And the thing is that unlike physical comics, the thing is people do now focus a lot on having everything like digital. And, I'm going to give the webtoons a shot and put, a couple episodes out. So that way it keeps me motivated. And I would love to see like new people come and see my work and just really have that fun of like always having a project or like, okay, I got to come out with the next episode or the next couple episodes.
That will keep you on task. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like, all right, what's next? Come on, chop,
exactly.
Chop. Yeah.
Right. But like these two have seen it. Go check out my Happy Easter drawing. It was a serial killer cutting out her eyes and talking about how he's going to place her eyeballs in some Easter egg, little plastic Easter eggs. I mean,
totally messed up.
Exactly. And it was fun because at first I was like going to go with the supernatural bunny, but I'm like, no, let me do a serial killer. You know, that's what's even better. Because like when I was drawing that, I was thinking of like that movie Next Door or something, where these people, I think it's Next Door, where people broke in this house and killing the family, and they have like a wolf mask on, a sheep mask on.
Oh, the strangers.
I don't know.
The strangers. Yeah.
Strangers.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's something freaky about masks. I don't know what. That's something we didn't.
Well, the same thing with Us. Like when they had the clear mask on in the beginning of Us, man, that was scary. That movie wasn't scary to me all the way through, but it did have some unsettling elements.
Yeah.
Big scissors. Big scissors are a scary weapon, you know.
What is it? There's something about big scissors too.
Yeah.
It's scarier than a knife. I think
absolutely.
Me, it's because it's not that sharp. So it feels like it would hurt more. Like it wouldn't go in real nice. Like it would kind of tear and push.
Yeah, somebody's got to work to get them in your body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And before we leave, me and Jason was talking about it, but for our 1 year anniversary, besides just doing, random stuff, we thought it'd be fun. I told him about it, doing a horror drawing /story prompt. So within that show, we'll do basically we'll have a category. It's like it'll be random. It's like, okay, your story is going to have to be based off of a doll. So come up with like a short little story on the row and draw the character and just read it.
Wow.
And you have been our returning guest so many times. So if you want to come on for that 1 year anniversary and just sit down and write a quick story and do some drawing with us.
Oh, man. All right. Okay. So you would be getting the prompt on the show. So like I would have to be sitting and doing like, I mean,
you gotta
see a lot of me like
you gotta talk, you gotta be funny, you gotta be witty.
You gotta be awesome.
You have to you gotta carry this show. Exactly.
It better be a goddamn great story too, by the way.
That's it.
Yeah.
We want it all. We want it all in an hour.
Look, I'm honored to be invited and I'll do it. But boy, that is a high pressure situation.
Hey, what's up, Sam? I haven't seen you in a while.
What's going on, just saying?
Yeah. So we'll let you know. We'll probably do it on, I don't know, when was our anniversary? On a Tuesday, I think.
Yeah, I think it falls on a Tuesday. The only day around then that I wouldn't be able to do it is the 22nd. Other than that, I'm good to go. Man, it's been a year already.
Yeah, when is the anniversary? When
May 17th.
Yeah.
May 17th. Okay, so around then I'll be prepared to.
Yeah, we'll have a date nailed down in the next little bit.
All right, cool.
Yeah, and I came up with this idea today. I'm like, it would just be fun to make a quick story on the spot.
Yeah, and here's the thing, Gary. If you really wanted to, you could be our moderator. You know what I mean? Like
whatever you guys, we can talk about it. We figure out, but like, hey, I would just be honored to be on the 1 year anniversary. So sure, whatever.
You can dress, you guys need. You can dress like Anderson Cooper, and me and Ronnie will dress like Ken Bone.
Right?
You know,
because I mean,
moderator.
Yeah, I mean, it's been great because like you've been on the show 4 times already?
I don't know.
Yeah, I would say because you came on twice for Dinosaurs versus Mars.
Yeah, so it'd be. Was it just one other time? It's 4 or 5, maybe.
Yeah.
It'll be number 5. This is number 4. This is 4.
This is 4.
Today is 4.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, in any case, that's that is most guested for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're definitely our third wheel. Like,
yeah, for sure.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Man, no, for real though. Like, we always love it when you come by. Like, I know we
It's great
chat.
when whenever
and
you
it's
ask and when
always
I'm
fun,
able to,
but
I love doing it. So
definitely. So yeah, y'all, another week in the books. I'm a sleepy little man, so I am going to go find some food.
yeah,
I'm going to go unwind.
And next week we are getting back to American Vampire. People wanted to know.
cool.
Yeah, such a good book.
Yeah, because this week, Jason was busy with his stuff. Last week, I got my final vaccine. It hit me hard Thursday, and I was like, I need to rest because it hurt me like for 2 days. So yeah,
2 days. Yeah. I was definitely useless the day after my second. For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that seems to be the consensus for most. There's been a handful of people I know that haven't had too bad of
it wasn't
goes with the second shot, but most people have missed the next day of work after.
The only bright side to it is, well, other than now you're, right. You don't have to be terrified to go and touch an ATM button or something. But
right.
the other benefit is knowing that it's not the same, even though you feel like you're sick, it's not the same as being sick. You're not sitting there thinking like, is this going to be like a week or 2 weeks? Am I going to have to miss work? Like if it's, it's pretty much 1+ days. Like, and if you can just wait it out, like you will be fine. That helps a lot psychologically.
There's a reason, right? There's a reason you're not getting sick. Like your body is an immune response.
I'll be fine. I just got to sit and watch YouTube videos and drink water, and I'll be fine. Yeah.
All right. Well, good night, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Y'all take care. Oh,
thanks, guys.
Comics in Color Boston is also running tomorrow. If y'all get a chance, there were some really good workshops on there today. They are running a replay. I was a guest on there, so I'll be posting that to my socials as it comes up, as they get them reposted. But I just wanted to mention that too because it's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Good. Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it.
Excellent. All right. Hey, y'all be good.
See you guys later.
Falcon and Winter Soldier tomorrow. Don't forget.
Yeah, the finale.